The desperate message. The silence of space was broken by a signal that would change everything. Commander Sarah Chun sat in the control room of Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega, her eyes fixed on the cascade of data flowing across multiple screens. For 15 years, she had listened to the cosmic background radiation, searching for patterns that might indicate intelligent life beyond Earth. Tonight, she found something that made her blood run cold. The signal was unlike anything in her experience. It pulsed with mathematical precision, carrying data streams that her computers could barely process. The transmission originated from a sector of space over 800 light-years away, yet somehow it had reached Earth with startling clarity. Sarah's hands trembled as she activated this emergency protocols that would summon the best minds on the planet. Dr. Marcus Rivera arrived at the station within hours, his reputation as Earth's premier xenolinguist preceding him. A small man with intense brown eyes and graying hair, he had spent decades developing algorithms that could decode alien languages. As he studied the signal patterns, his expression grew increasingly grave. "Sarah, this is not just a message," he said quietly. "This is a cry for help from an entire civilization." The translation process took 3 days of continuous work. Rivera's team worked in shifts, feeding the alien data through quantum computers that processed meaning from mathematical relationships and universal constants. When the first coherent sentences emerged, they revealed a horror that humanity had never imagined. The message spoke of beings called the Void Hunters, a species that consumed entire star systems for energy. They moved through space like a plague of locusts, stripping worlds of all life before moving on to the next target. The transmission came from the survivors of the Kepler Union, a confederation of 12 peaceful species that had been systematically destroyed over the past century. "We have lost everything," the decoded message read. "Our worlds burn. Our children die. The darkness spreads, and we are powerless to stop it. But we have heard whispers from the far reaches of space. Stories of a species that calls itself human, inhabitants of a world so harsh that only the strongest survive. You are known throughout the galaxy as Iron Worlders, beings forged in the fires of a death planet. If these stories are true, if you possess the strength that legends claim, then you are our only hope." Admiral James Patterson, commander of Earth's Space Defense Force, listened to the translation with growing amazement. The idea that humanity had a reputation among alien species was shocking enough, but the specific details were even more surprising. The message described Earth as a forge world, where constant natural disasters had created a species of unparalleled resilience. "They know about our ice ages," Patterson said, reading through the decoded files. "They know about our wars, our plagues, our natural disasters. They have been watching us for centuries." The message continued with tactical information about the Void Hunters. These beings possessed technology they could drain the energy from entire suns, using massive ships that were part machine and part living organism. They had no interest in communication or conquest in any traditional sense. They simply consumed everything in their path, leaving behind empty space where thriving civilizations once existed. According to this data, Rivera explained to the Emergency Council, the Void Hunters had destroyed over 300 inhabited worlds in the past millennium. They are not evil in any way we understand. They are simply hungry and organic. Life is their food source. The most disturbing revelation came in the final section of the message. The Void Hunters had detected the radio signals from Earth and were already adjusting their course. Humanity had perhaps 5 years before the consuming darkness reached the outer edges of the solar system. Sarah Chun found herself at the center of the greatest crisis in human history. The woman who had spent her career listening to empty space was now coordinating humanity's response to an extinction-level threat. The weight of responsibility was crushing, but she drew strength from the knowledge that this was exactly the kind of challenge that had forged humanity's character. The response to the alien message was swift and decisive. Within days, every major government on Earth had committed to a unified defense effort. Factory production lines were retooled to produce weapons and spacecraft. Military academies graduated officers in accelerated programs. Scientists worked around the clock to develop new technologies based on the alien data. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Lisa Park, a theoretical physicist who had been studying the alien transmission, discovered that the Void Hunters' technology had a critical weakness. Their energy-draining systems required precise harmonic frequencies to function properly. If those frequencies could be disrupted, their weapons might become useless. "It's like jamming a radio signal," Park explained to the military council. "But instead of blocking communication, we are blocking their ability to consume energy. If we can generate the right interference pattern, we can turn their greatest strength into a liability." The development of this technology required resources on a scale never before attempted. Entire continents were converted into massive industrial complexes. Mining operations in the asteroid belt expanded to provide raw materials. The moon became a shipyard where humanity's first interstellar fleet took shape. But the most important development was the arrival of the first alien refugees. 3 small ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, badly damaged and carrying survivors from the Kepler Union. The beings on board were unlike anything humans had imagined. They were tall, graceful creatures with luminescent skin and large eyes that seemed to hold infinite sadness. The lead refugee introduced herself as Zara 7, and a former military commander who had witnessed the destruction of her home world. She spoke in a melodious voice that the translation computers rendered into perfect English. "We have traveled for many years to reach you," she said, her words carrying the weight of unimaginable loss. "We have seen the legends of the Iron Worlders, but we did not dare hope they were true. Now, looking upon your world and your people, we understand why the galaxy speaks of you in whispers." Zara 7 brought with her detailed intelligence about the Void Hunters' capabilities and weaknesses. She had been part of the resistance efforts that had delayed their advance, buying precious time for the evacuation of civilian populations. Her knowledge would prove invaluable in the coming conflict. "Your species is unique," she explained to Admiral Patterson. "Most civilizations in the galaxy evolved on stable worlds with predictable environments. They developed technology and culture, but they never learned to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. You humans are different. Your world has been trying to kill you for millions of years, and instead of dying, you learn to kill it back." The refugee ships also brought something else, proof that the Void Hunters were real and that they were coming. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures moving through space, still years away, but approaching with inevitable certainty. The consuming darkness was on its way, and humanity had precious little time to prepare. As the first phase of preparation neared completion, Sarah Chon found herself standing in the observatory where it all began. The alien signal had stopped transmitting weeks ago, its source presumably consumed by the very threat it had warned against. But the message had accomplished its purpose. Humanity was awake, aware, and ready to fight. The transformation of human civilization in such a short time was nothing short of miraculous. The species that had once fought wars over resources and territory had united against a common threat. The same competitive nature that had driven conflict on Earth now drove innovation and cooperation on a galactic scale. "We are about to face our greatest test," Admiral Patterson announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "The Void Hunters have never encountered a species like us. They expect their enemies to surrender when losses become too high. They expect fear to break our resolve. They have no idea what it means to be human." The first ships of humanity's interstellar fleet began their journey to the outer system, where they would establish defensive positions and wait for the enemy to arrive. These vessels were unlike anything ever built, combining human engineering with alien technology in ways that neither species had thought possible. As the fleet departed, Sarah Chun received one final message from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Another signal, this one from a different sector of space, carrying the same desperate plea for help. The Void Hunters were not approaching from just one direction. They were coming from everywhere, and humanity was about to discover just how vast and hungry the darkness truly was. The Iron Worlders were about to face their destiny among the stars. Iron Worlders rise. The shipyards of Luna Base had never seen activity like this. Captain Rex Morrison stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching as the final components of humanity's defense fleet were assembled in the void. The massive warship beneath his feet represented 5 years of continuous innovation, incorporating technologies that would have been impossible without the alien refugees' knowledge. "Final systems check complete, Captain," reported Chief Engineer Lisa Park from the bridge. The brilliant woman had become legendary for her ability to merge human engineering with alien technology, creating weapon systems that neither species could have developed alone. "All ships report ready for departure." Morrison nodded, his weathered face reflecting the weight of command. At 52, he had served in every major conflict of the past 2 decades, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Humanity's first interstellar fleet consisted of 200 ships, each one a masterpiece of adaptive engineering designed to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. The Void Hunters had been detected at the edge of the solar system 3 days ago. Their massive ships moved through space like living shadows, each one the size of a small moon. Long-range sensors counted over 1,000 vessels in the approaching fleet, supported by millions of smaller attack craft that swarmed around them. Larger ships like insects. "All ships, this is Admiral Patterson," came the voice from Earth Command. "You are humanity's finest, representing not just our species, but every innocent life in the galaxy. The enemy you face today has consumed entire civilizations, but they have never fought beings like you. Show them what it means to challenge the Iron Worlders." The human fleet moved into formation with practiced precision. Unlike the rigid battle lines favored by most galactic civilizations, the human vessels spread out in a loose formation that could adapt instantly to changing circumstances. Each ship was equipped with the harmonic disruption technology that Dr. Park had developed, weapons designed to exploit the Void Hunters' greatest weakness. Morrison studied the tactical displays as the 2 fleets approached each other. The Void Hunters moved in perfect synchronization, their massive ships arranged in geometric patterns that maximized their energy-draining capabilities. It was an impressive sight, but Morrison had learned something important from the alien refugees. Impressive did not mean invincible. "Enemy fleet is entering weapons range," reported Lieutenant Commander Tom Bradley, the ship's tactical officer. "Their energy signatures are off the charts, but they are following the same attack patterns that Zara 7 described. They expect us to retreat when they demonstrate their power." The first exchange of fire lit up the darkness between the fleets. The Void Hunters unleashed beams of consuming energy that could strip the life from entire planets. But instead of meeting the expected targets, their weapons struck empty space. The human ships had scattered at the last moment, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the devastating attack. "Now," Morrison commanded, "all ships execute disruption pattern Alpha." The human fleet responded with a coordinated attack that was unlike anything the Void Hunters had ever faced. Instead of trying to match their enemy's raw power, the human ships targeted the harmonic frequencies that allowed the alien technology to function. The disruption weapons created cascading failures throughout the Void Hunter fleet, causing their energy weapons to turn against themselves. The effect was immediate and devastating. Several of the massive alien ships began to tear themselves apart as their own weapon systems malfunctioned. The perfect synchronization of their fleet formation broke down as individual ships struggled to maintain control of their technology. "My God," whispered Ambassador Elena Cross, who was observing the battle from the command ship. "It's actually working." But the Void Hunters were not helpless. As their technology failed, they adapted with frightening speed. The massive ships began to change shape, their living components taking over from the mechanical systems. What had been sleek vessels became writhing masses of organic matter, armed with weapons that were part biology and part machine. "They are adapting faster than we anticipated," reported Dr. Park from the engineering station. "Their biological components are immune to our disruption technology. We need a new strategy." Morrison watched as the alien ships began to reform their attack patterns. The Void Hunters might have been surprised by humanity's initial assault, but they were learning quickly. The battle was about to become much more difficult. "All ships, pattern Delta," Morrison ordered. "Show them what human creativity looks like." The human fleet immediately changed tactics, abandoning the coordinated attack for something that looked like complete chaos. Ships broke formation and began acting independently, using improvised maneuvers that no computer could predict. Some vessels used gravity assists from nearby asteroids to achieve impossible acceleration. Others deployed experimental weapons that had never been tested in combat. The Void Hunters, accustomed to fighting enemies that followed predictable patterns, found themselves completely unable to respond to the human tactics. Their weapon systems, designed for organized warfare, could not target opponents that refused to behave logically. General Marcus Stone, commanding the ground forces aboard the fleet's assault ships, watched the space battle with professional interest. His Marines were prepared for boarding actions if the opportunity arose, but the current fight was taking place at ranges where such operations were impossible. "Captain Morrison is doing exactly what humans do best," Stone observed to his staff. "He is turning chaos into a weapon." The battle continued for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Void Hunters' raw power was overwhelming, but their inability to adapt to human unpredictability was becoming a critical weakness. Meanwhile, the human ships were taking heavy losses, but their ability to replace destroyed vessels with innovative new tactics was keeping the fleet in the fight. The turning point came when Morrison made a decision that no other species in the galaxy would have considered. Instead of trying to defeat the Void Hunters in space, he ordered a direct assault on their flagship. The massive vessel at the center of their formation was clearly coordinating the entire fleet, and Morrison believed that destroying it would break their unity. "All ships, prepare for close assault," Morrison broadcast. "We are going to ram their command ship." The human fleet concentrated into a tight formation and accelerated directly toward the Void Hunter flagship. The alien vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of any human ship. But Morrison had learned something important from studying Earth's military history. Sometimes the only way to defeat a superior enemy was to get close enough that their advantages became disadvantages. The assault was devastating for both sides. Human ships were destroyed by the dozens as they fought through the alien defensive fire. But the survivors pressed on with a determination that the Void Hunters had never encountered. When the lead human vessels finally reached the flagship, they did not stop to fight. They simply crashed into the massive ship at full velocity, their reactor cores detonating in controlled explosions. The destruction of the Void Hunter flagship created a chain reaction that crippled the entire alien fleet. Without their coordinating intelligence, the massive ships began to drift aimlessly through space, their organic components struggling to maintain basic functions. "We did it," Park reported with amazement. "The remaining Void Hunter ships are retreating. They are actually running away." Morrison looked at the tactical display, which showed the surviving alien vessels fleeing toward the outer system. The human fleet had lost over half its ships, but they had achieved something that no other species had ever accomplished. They had defeated the Void Hunters in open battle. Asterisk. The aftermath of the battle was a time of both celebration and mourning. The human species had proven itself capable of defending not just Earth, but the entire galaxy from the consuming darkness. But the cost had been enormous, with thousands of brave men and women giving their lives to protect others they had never met. Zara 7, the alien refugee who had provided crucial intelligence for the battle, approached Morrison as he reviewed the casualty reports. Her luminescent skin seemed to glow with an inner light as she spoke. "Your species has done something that we thought impossible," she said softly. "You have shown that the darkness can be defeated. But more than that, you have shown that there is still hope in the galaxy." The news of humanity's victory spread quickly through the refugee networks that connected the surviving civilizations. Species that had been in hiding for centuries began to emerge from their shelters, inspired by the example of the Iron Worlders who had refused to surrender. Dr. Rivera, working with the alien survivors, began to decode new messages from across the galaxy. Civilizations that had been conquered by the Void Hunters were rising in rebellion, using the tactics that humanity had pioneered. The victory at Earth was becoming a symbol of resistance that spread faster than the Void Hunters could respond. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the next phase of the war, Morrison found himself thinking about the signal that had started it all. Sarah Chun's discovery in the Deep Space Monitoring Station had led to this moment when humanity stepped forward to take its place as protectors of the galaxy. "What happens now?" asked Ambassador Cross as she watched the reconstruction efforts beginning throughout the solar system. Morrison smiled, looking out at the stars where other battles were being fought by species inspired by human courage. "Now we do what humans have always done. We adapt, we innovate, and we protect those who cannot protect themselves." The Iron Worlders had risen to meet their destiny, and the galaxy would never be the same. The consuming darkness had finally met its match in the form of a species that refused to be consumed. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as guardians of life itself. The war against the Void Hunters was far from over, but for the first time in centuries, the galaxy had hope. And that hope carried the name of the small blue planet, whose inhabitants had learned to forge strength from adversity, creating warriors from the crucible of a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. The Iron Worlders had answered the call, and the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter. Asterisk.